solar panels. Those provide power to Dragon during the flight. The other half is the radiator. Dragon itself is equipped with 16 Draco thrusters. We got a really cool view of the 4 forward bulkhead ones firing earlier on this flight with lights on the Earth behind you. Those are used to orient the spacecraft during the mission. They also get used for apogee and perigee raise and lower maneuvers, orbit adjustments, and attitude control. For the EVA, the Dracos are going to be used to reposition Dragon so the trunk is facing the sun, and they're also there to be used for reorientation during the spacewalk if needed.
In order to accommodate a spacewalk, this is the first Dragon to be outfitted with a Skywalker in place of the cupola observation dome. The Skywalker that you see there, looking up at it basically from underneath it, the Skywalker is a structure that is mounted to the top of the Dragon capsule, and the astronauts will use this to assist in exiting and re-entering the spacecraft during their spacewalk. The team also added additional nitrogen tanks to assist in repressurization of the capsule after the EVA. Another new feature on Dragon is the addition of a motor plus handholds and footholds inside the spacecraft to help with opening and closing the hatch during the spacewalk.
This Dragon also carrying what we are calling the Starlink plug and placer, making this the first mission on Dragon to use the Starlink network in orbit. Inside of Dragon is a router connected to a user terminal in Dragon's trunk, and then this terminal is linked to a new plug and placer device that's mounted nearby. While we're not using Starlink for continuous coverage during this operation, we've been testing its ability to establish and maintain laser communications with our Starlink satellites there in orbit that are below Dragon.
Dragon has proved to be quite a versatile spacecraft. It can autonomously dock to the space station when outfitted with the ISS docking adapter. And when it's intended for free flyer mode, the docking adapter can be swapped out.
SpaceX Dragon, you guys are welcome to come back aboard if you want.
SpaceX copies. Don't have a ground station right now, but we'll go ahead and bring cameras back on board so we get it when we do have ground stations.
Copy.
Quick comms there with SpaceX Core from the Dragon capsule. That was the crew just letting the folks here in mission control, letting us know that it's okay to turn the onboard cameras back on once we have coverage for those cameras. But getting back to the different configurations that we have for the Dragon capsule, I was talking about the docking adapter previously. When the Dragon capsule is intended for free flyer mode, the docking adapter can be swapped out for a cupola, which is the one in the middle there, and that is used for the best views that you can get while in orbit. And then, of course, our newest option, the Skywalker hardware to support extravehicular activities, and that's what the crew is going to be using this morning. So those are the current 3 ways that Dragon can be configured to support different types of missions. But hey, you never know what's to come. We always got something up our sleeve.
That's right. Now, Mike, Crew 1 broke the record for the longest space flight by a U.S. crewed vehicle. It surpassed the 84-day mark that was set by an Apollo capsule during that final flight to the Skylab space station in 1974. What was it like? Because we went over it. You literally called Dragon home during that time.
Yeah,
what was it like to live in there?
So first of all, I got to say it's pretty exciting because the Dragon that they're using right now is the Dragon that I lived in that took us to orbit.
Dragon Resilience.
Yeah, we affectionately called Resilience, and it was an amazing spacecraft. It from a standpoint of living inside it, and again, it a lot of room actually compared to some of the other crew quarters that we had on board, and plus just being able to spend all that time in it. I'd call my family every night before I go to bed, and I'd be looking out the window at the Earth as I was doing that. It was very special.
Did any of them get jealous because you had the window seat?
Well, yeah, there was a little bit of that certainly going on up there.
Nice. Now, as you mentioned, this Dragon capsule that the that the Polaris Dawn crew is flying in was previously used, really debuted on the Crew 1 mission, hence why you guys had the honor of naming it in the first place. But this capsule was also used for the Inspiration 4 mission that Jared also commanded. What is your take on this being one spacecraft but supporting multiple missions?
I think it's fantastic. It just shows the flexibility of the design that SpaceX made when looking at the Crew Dragon vehicles. So I think it's very exciting to see a vehicle that can go from one mission to the other, and quite frankly, do it quite quickly as well. I think I don't remember the exact timing from our mission and when we landed to when Inspiration 4 launched, but it wasn't a very long time, and yet you were able to take that docking adapter off, put the cupola on in a very short time, which is also pretty impressive.
I actually have that noted here. Crew 1 took off in November of 2020, and Inspiration 4 lifted off in September of 2021.
That's incredible, because we landed in May of 21, and so within that short period of time, you reconfigured the vehicle and were able to put that cupola on and launch. Cool. Yeah, very impressive.
Your mission patch sticker is in the capsule that they're in now, and
we'll
add their own sticker too as well.
Right.
All right. Well, as you can imagine, Dragon has undergone some changes for this, and with changes comes extensive testing for the mission. And all the modifications that we made in preparation for today had to go through kind of their own test regimen.
Yeah. Testing is a critical part of qualifying a spacecraft like Dragon for flight. Rigorous testing helps identify and mitigate potential risks, verify system and component reliability, and helps ensure that the designs meet the mission requirements. There are many types of tests a spacecraft might undergo when qualifying for flight, including structural, thermal vacuum, radiation, software, and integrated systems testing.
One of the tests the new Skywalker hardware underwent is thermal vacuum testing. This actually tested how Skywalker withstands the extreme temperature swings that it's going to see while it's in the vacuum of space. And while Dragon was being put through all of its paces, the Polaris Dawn crew was going through the same SpaceX training as part of that we give to NASA astronauts. They also had to train to perform their EVA, though. For basic training at SpaceX Hawthorne, they got trained on everything from orbital mechanics to just how to live and work in microgravity. Also ran through numerous simulations of what the full mission would look like while they were seated inside of our Dragon trainer.
In addition to ensuring that they're familiar with SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon spacecraft, the crew went through an extensive training regimen to build their physical endurance and mental toughness, ensuring that they are well-rounded and prepared for spaceflight and today's EVA.
Now, switching gears, one of the coolest things, designed in-house by SpaceX, the EVA suit has all the functions of our original spacesuit with the added bonus of allowing astronauts to exit the spacecraft while in orbit.
And this mission gives us a great opportunity to test our EVA suits in space. Building a base on the moon and a city on Mars will require thousands of spacesuits, so the development of this suit and the EVA performed on this mission will be important steps toward a scalable design for spacesuits on future long-duration missions.
As we mentioned, SpaceX designs and manufactures our own suits, and we have a little behind-the-scenes look for you, something most people don't get to see, the inside of our very own suit lab.
An EVA suit is an extravehicular activity suit, which is a spacesuit that can go outside of the spacecraft to do a spacewalk. We started with the IVA suit that we have, the intravehicular activity suit, as a kind of starting point, and looked at it and said, what would we have to change about this to be able to support a spacewalk? So the first is mobility. The crew will have to do a lot of moving around inside of Dragon to get outside and do the spacewalk. We had to add in new joints and new features in the suit to allow them enhanced mobility while the suit's pressurized.
When a crew member is pressurized in the suit, the soft portions of the suit become rigid. They need actual flexure and rotational joints to allow them to move around. It's kind of like a suit of armor made of fabric. We innovated in flexure joints to allow easy bending at the elbows and the knees, as well as a collapsible rotator joint that exists on the shoulder, which allows the suit to remain nearly fully soft, but when pressurized is a rotational bearing.
The difference between the IVA and the EVA suit is that on the IVA suit, the zipper system location is in the inseam. But since we needed to have lots of mobility on our EVA suit, that was not the preferred choice. By moving the zipper system from the inseam to the waist, we mitigated risk of the stress of the zipper.
And another big element was also the thermal side of things. The crew is obviously exposed to a much more extreme thermal environment during the EVA. So we want to make sure that the inside of the suit is comfortable for them, and that as they interface with parts of the vehicle, that is safe for them to touch as well.
The EVA suit is built and designed here at SpaceX in Houghton, California. We wanted to have something that's easy manufactured that we can handle here in-house. So we developed this new material, so it's fabric-based.
We actually added a new layer to the suit, which we refer to as the Faraday layer. And this is a conductive cage around the suit that shields the suit from external electric fields.
The helmet on the EVA suit looks very similar to the IVA suit, but it is really an all-new design of that helmet. It's much more robust from a thermal structural perspective since it will be taking more extreme temperatures.
We are really excited to introduce this new single-pane visor helmet to the world of spacesuits. The EVA suit visor is made of polycarbonate and is coated with copper and ITO, or indium tenoxide. These two coatings together reflect the sun away from the crew, as well as reflecting infrared heat back to the crew when they are facing deep space. Our suit has a HUD, or heads-up display, which is a small display screen in the helmet, which is transparent, which allows the crew to see through the display to have unfettered access during their EVA, but it also provides critical telemetry to the crew, so pressure, temperature, relative humidity.
We're trying to improve the technology and streamline it in one way, and at the same time, we're also trying to get it more and more manufacturable with each generation. The ultimate goal is that you can put on a spacesuit and go out and get work done anywhere in the solar system and not feel like you're wearing anything more than you normally wear every day.
We also had a chance to talk to the SpaceX team that developed some of the hardware and procedures for our first spacewalk. Let's hear what they had to say.
EVA stands for extravehicular activity, and it's any sort of operation in space where a human is getting out of the spacecraft. So in the case of Polaris Dawn, we're going to be testing the mobility of the suit. We're going to see if the in-space operation matches the training we've done here in Hawthorne. There's really a lot of different things that can happen during an EVA, and this is the first step for Dragon and SpaceX.
When I first started working at SpaceX, I never thought I'd be training a crew to do an EVA. It's brand new, it's so unique, we've never done anything like this before, and so we wanted to make sure we had the best possible training program for this mission.
We want to see if we can train a spacewalk on Earth in a way that's representative of what it feels like in space.
Even though only 2 people are going to be going outside during this first EVA, all 4 crew will be in EVA suits going down to vacuum.
Dragon was always designed to vent to full vacuum, but we've never taken a full Dragon capsule down to vacuum, and this will be the first time we do it in space.
We actually put crew into a chamber at Johnson Space Center in Houston and had them live the exact profile that they will experience, and making sure that no one actually experienced decompression sickness.
We have a couple new training assets for Polaris Dawn to train the EVA specifically. The suspension system that we have is situated on top of the platform of our capsule simulator. The lines drop through the hatch. They attach to a single crew member inside the capsule. We can lift them up and get them situated so that they can egress the capsule and perform their tasks at Skywalker, the mobility aid.
The Skywalker, what's amazing to me is a lot of people are going to think it's a metallic structure just bolted to the top of Dragon, but a lot of development effort, testing went into the Skywalker. So we actually used similar technology as we have in the Super Draco chambers to apply a thermal barrier coating to the outside of the Skywalker. That is going to be a really, really amazing mobility aid on the front end of Dragon.
We also developed a sideways simulator, so we flip the hatch on its side.
In the event the hatch fails to close, they can manually close the hatch. We have them do that in a sideways suspension system, so gravity isn't helping them close or helping them open that hatch mechanism.
It's new development for Dragon, it's new development for SpaceX and the industry as a whole. So this is a great example of where Polaris Dawn is forcing the team to innovate in a way that adds safety and reliability to every Dragon mission going forward.
that's this huge challenge for us to go solve, but that's also an opportunity for us to solve the problems that we have to go figure out anyway for our larger goals, like putting people on Mars.
The Polaris Dawn objectives are the first step towards that ultimate flight with humans inside of Starship, which is right along the SpaceX development path that we have towards getting to the Moon and Mars.
Love seeing how not only the suit, but the space operations for the EVA itself came together and were developed. Now we are still counting down to the spacewalk this morning. The crew on board is completing final fit-ups, and we're going to be standing by for seat rotation and suit leak checks. So we're continuing to truck along to the main event. Now, Mike, you obviously went through some of the suit-up process that we saw in that package in terms of the development of the suit and how it's custom fitted for each individual. And that's the same case for an EVA suit. So maybe you can share with us what that experience was like.
Yeah, it's extremely important to have a suit that fits, whether, again, it's the IVA, the EVA suit, or the EMU that we wear with NASA when we go out on the spacewalks. And the reason for that is because if it doesn't fit right, it can be extremely uncomfortable. You can get what you call hot spots, or there can be a place where a crease, when it gets pressurized, can really put a hard point on your arm or something of that nature. So having a good suit fit check is extremely important. And it's one of the things that was kind of fun as well, because you get to spend a lot of time with the suit team here with Chris and Eric
they're
and Maria.
A great crew. They're so good.
They're fantastic. And I mean, just over the years, they've gained so much experience, and they can really help you hone in on what the really good fitting suit is like, with just the way they ask the questions and lead you through that process.
Wow.
What are kind of the sensational differences from being in like the IVA suit? Because a lot of times the IVA suit, when it gets pressurized, it fills up, but you're still in like a pressured environment. With EVA suit, you're in the vacuum.
Right.
And so like what's it kind of like?
Yeah, so that IVA suit, it has a different purpose, right? And that the purpose of that IVA suit is to keep us alive in the event of some type of an emergency that might happen during a launch or a landing. And so that's that case where either you have a fire or you have a depress event, and so that suit's going to pressurize. And so in that case, we're not as worried about like the mobility of the suit. You just want to get home and do it in a safe way. And so you need to have enough mobility to still be able to control the spacecraft and do the things you need to do, but you're just not as worried about it because you're not trying to perform a maintenance activity or something like that when you're going out on a spacewalk. And so I think that's one of the biggest differences between the IVA suit and the EVA suit, is just what the purpose of it is and what you're trying to do with it.
Yeah, that feedback loop is so important to be able to communicate what feels good, what doesn't, because I imagine, as you're out there and having to perform, as you mentioned, maintenance activities, among other things, that the functionality of your body is critical to perform those.
It really is, and probably one of the hardest, I think, parts of the suit to design is the gloves. Right, because
absolutely,
you hear us use the term "it fits like a glove," right? We use that a lot, but you don't realize how much you use your hands when you're outside on a spacewalk, as opposed to, say, your feet when you're, because in space we don't use our feet or our legs as much as we do our hands, and so when you're in a pressurized suit like that, and you're constantly grabbing and reaching, you are overcoming the pressure of the suit, and your hands can get just exhausted. And you can get those hot spots. I had some issues with my EMU gloves when I first started training at NASA, and I would actually get what's called delamination on my fingernails.
Ouch.
And so there's just little things like that it really matters how well that suit fits and how well it functions. And so you don't realize how important that is sometimes.
Yeah. Now, we are going to be stepping into suit leak checks soon. Can you share with us a little bit about what that process entails? And more importantly, because you've actually experienced what it feels like to go through suit leak checks, what that experience is like.
Extremely important part of the whole process, right? Because before you take the cabin, in this case, all the way down to vacuum, you want to make sure that your suit is maintaining the pressure that it needs to. And so it's a not a very long process. It's usually just a few minutes to 2 or 3 minutes. And the interesting part is if you don't pass that leak check, what do you do next? And so there's always usually procedures associated with that as well, that start checking your zipper, start checking how you've closed things up. Did you not get something sealed quite right? And so it's always a good point in the mission when whether it's on the launch pad getting ready, whether it's in the airlock getting ready to go out the door, when you hear that, yeah, good leak check, because now you know that you're ready to go.
So today's going to be kind of unique because all 4 of our crew members are going to be doing the spacewalk. They're all going to be exposed to the vacuum of space. But I mean, even when you did spacewalks, it's never a solo act, right? Like you're always out there with a partner.
You are. It's extremely important. In fact, one of the hardest parts about our training for spacewalks is what we call incapacitated crew. And so you need to always be able to get your crewmate back into the airlock if something should happen, if they should no longer be conscious and something of that nature. And so we actually do spend quite a bit of time, and that's why it's extremely important for us to go out in pairs, because things can go wrong. And so you want to be prepared for those moments.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dan, to make, that while only Jared and Sarah are going to be somewhat exiting the spacecraft, all 4 crew members are going to be exposed to the vacuum of space, and it's actually going to set a new record for most number of people exposed to, or not them without a suit, but in the vacuum of gravity all at the same time. Yeah,
that's actually interesting. I never actually thought of that piece of this mission, and the fact that you're going to have 4 people on a spacewalk. I know at one point on a shuttle mission we had three folks outside on a spacewalk. And so, that's a big deal and kind of exciting. One of the things we do on the space station, of course, is we have astronauts that are still inside, and if we do get into those emergency situations, they're there prepared to help us get back into the airlock and get unsuited and things of that nature. So, of course, when you have all the crew, it just makes you think about those emergency situations probably in a little bit different way than we do on station.
And hey, if you're just tuning in, we are still waiting to really kick off our spacewalk today. So right now the crew is inside the spacecraft. They're getting suited up. We should be hearing some comms from them pretty soon. And then
SpaceX Dragon EV1 is completing glove zipper closures, but at this time we are ready for seat rotation.
Copy that for seat rotation. Can you confirm crew is ready with the current glove zipper ups?
All right, I guess they just needed me to say it was coming soon, and then there it is. But we are going to hear the seat rotation coming up soon. Again, they're in the recline position.
And I'll do standby well to get them to the seat.
Copy. Standing by.
So they're going to get those seats rotated, and then we're pretty much going to be ready to start getting into things. And our EVA is going to officially start when we start flowing O2 into those suits. And so that'll kind of start our clock. We're going to be showing you some of the telemetry. So all those numbers at the bottom of your screen, you've got a couple right now. That one all the way in the bottom left corner, that's your Dragon. That's your Dragon cabin pressure. That's in PSI.
SpaceX Dragon, you're ready for seat rotation.
SpaceX copies. Initiating seat rotation.
Great news there. That's going to help give the crew a little bit more room to move around during the spacewalk. And after we get through the seat rotation, we'll be able to perform those suit leak checks that we were just talking about.
Yeah, before they do that, they'll do what's called a tear. So it's kind of like if you're ever using a scale, you zero out the scale before you put something on it. It's essentially what we're doing with the suits. They'll get like a baseline reading. And then as we start to actually pressurize the suits, we'll be able to measure that against the baseline, make sure everybody's got basically a nice seal before we start that vent.
Yeah, that one's pretty important.
That was pretty important. Yeah, so a lot of that's coming up. Again, some of the data on your screen, you've got cabin pressure, you've got suit pressure.
Dragon SpaceX, seat rotation complete and nominal.
All right, seat rotation's complete, so now they're going to start doing that tear, getting ready.
Join copy, just the phone.
Copy, and can I get a confirmation of completion per the call out in 2.18?
H1 SpaceX complete with 2.18.
Copy. At this time, you are go to step into section 3 and tear suit deucers.
Copy, stepping into it.
Just a quick reminder, in case if you missed the top of the show, we're going to be referring to the crew a little differently for the EVA activity than we were previously. So we heard Anna talk EV1. That was referring to Jared. So basically his call sign for this spacewalk operation is EV1. Sarah's call sign will be EV2. Anna will be support 2, and Scott will be support 1. Also, Scott and Sarah are switching seats. Perhaps they already have. Yeah.
Copy, standby for HUD power for pressure sensor checkouts.
Okay, so our suit tear completed. So next up is going to be the HUD checkout. So the HUD, your heads-up display.
Very excited about this.
really excited about this. And Mike, I'd love to kind of get your perspective on this real quick. We do have on your screen, though, that's your seat order. So you've got EV1. Jared is in that seat. He's going to be in that seat right now, but once we actually get ready to open the hatch and everything, he's going to be positioned kind of over by the hatch. And then Sarah, EV2, is going to be in one of those center seats. Then you'll have Anna and Kid on either side.
Dragon SpaceX, suit HUD's powered. Report results of primary sensor HUD checks in 3.2.
So again, that's our seat layout. We just heard the HUDs are powered on, so they've got heads-up displays actually being kind of projected on their visor in their helmet. Which, if you've ever seen spacesuits, that's always kind of felt like that's that space age technology that we're missing. Because Mike, you use kind of a simpler but a little unorthodox way to see like your suit data.
Yeah, that's right, Dan. It's of course the suits
and SpaceX HUD checkout complete, all nominal.
Nice.
Copy, swapping to backup sensors. Stand by to repeat HUD checks.
So, of course, the suits that we use for the spacewalks on station are a little bit older. They've been around for quite a while, and so some of this technology,
Oh, look, it's our first live views inside Dragon Resilience for this morning.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
I think this is the definition of chillin'.
Yeah.
So there, out of his seat, that's Commander Jared, who, like I mentioned before, will be referred to as EV1. Behind him, we can see already in his new seat, pilot Scott Kid Poteet. He will be support 1. And then moving around in front of us is Sarah, who will be EV2. And then just out of view underneath the camera, but I think you can see her visor, is Anna Menon, who is support 2.
Dragon SpaceX, we're on backup sensors. Repeat HUD checks.
The crew's going to check out those heads-up displays one more time real quick.
SpaceX HUD checkouts on backup sensors, all nominal.
Copy, good HUDs. Returning to primary. Stand by for helmet camera checkouts.
On that heads-up display, they'll be able to see the O2 flow timer. That's kind of like our mission clock, essentially, like once the O2 has started to flow to their seats, and they know they've got about an hour and 50 minutes, just under 2 hours for the whole time. They'll be able to see their suit pressure, temperature. Basically, it's a way to kind of keep an eye on things And we were talking about it a little bit, Mike, but on the EMU is a little bit different.
Yeah, the EMU is certainly different. A lot of that kind of information is on a display right in front of you that you have to kind of look down to see, and it can be pretty challenging to see. In fact, a lot of the information you have to use a mirror on your wrist to be able to read it and know what you're controlling as well. You mentioned the timer. Of course, we don't have that kind of information on ours, and I'm not sure I'd want to know that because I'd feel the pressure of, hey, I got to get a lot of things done and I'm running out of time. Yeah.
All right. So they're going through these HUD checkouts again pretty soon.
Dragon SpaceX powering on helmet cams.
We're going to get the helmet cams powered on. Again, give you that kind of look right over their shoulders.
Yeah, pretty excited for these. We've seen them utilized during the training sessions that the crew has undergone, and we're so excited to see them live today.
Yeah, I tell you, the helmet cameras, I mean, it's going to be fantastic views, right, that we're all going to love. But there's also a very important role for those cameras as well. Like when we have the same thing, we have helmet cameras with the EMUs, and what it allows is your ground team.
Dragon SpaceX suit cameras powered, confirm good health.
So it really allows your ground teams to kind of be able to see what you're doing. And
SpaceX is to get video and both speeds, no fault.
And almost double check your work.
Copy. Checkout's complete. HUDs will remain powered. Proceed to step 3.3, operations review through 3.8, report when complete.
All right, so we got through HUD checks, we got cameras on, powered, ready to go. So right now the crew is going to go through, they're going to do kind of a final review of all of their procedures. Mike, you talked about this a little bit, like these things are so choreographed because even if you couldn't see the clock, like you're on the clock. So you've really got to make the most out of like every single second you're doing one of these.
You do, and of course you see that with today's spacewalk as well.
Dragon SpaceX repeating, checkouts are complete. HUDs are going to remain powered. Proceed to step 3.3, operations review through 3.8, and report when complete.
Copy, and work.
And the reason it's so choreographed and important is because you only have so much time outside, right? You only have so many consumables that allow you to go out there. And so you want to take advantage of all of that, and you want to have every step very well scripted so that there's not a lot of wasted time. Now, that being said, it is nice when you're out there once in a while to just kind of take a moment, look around, enjoy the views, kind of try to absorb where you actually are, which can be pretty incredible as well.
Every once in a while, guys, I'm a little tired. I'm going to take a minute.
That's right. I need to take a break.
I see my house from here.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, but like it's awesome. We're seeing the crew inside. We're getting close to the start of today's spacewalk. We're going to start flowing O2 to the suits, and that's when our clock's going to start. Right now, they're just doing kind of final cabin configurations. They're going to check the lighting. They're going to make sure that their umbilicals are in the right spot. That's one of the things you'll see. That's actually one of the roles that our support crew members are really going to. That's kind of one of their primary jobs during the spacewalk is to manage those umbilicals. For you guys, Mike, you had one. That's what plugs into kind of the leg in your suit, and that's what's providing like the breathing gas, comms, connections, all of that stuff. For the spacewalk today, it's a little bit different. This one that they're going to be using has some tethers in it for Sarah and Jared. It's about 12 feet long, so it's like about double the length of what you guys have.
So it's dual purpose, right? It's providing them the air and the cooling that they need while they're out on the spacewalk, but it's also providing that safety piece, right? So that if something should happen, they should slip or that they're not going to go floating off into space. With the EMU that we use on the space station, we actually, all of those consumables are a part of the suit itself, and we have a separate safety tether that the first thing we do when we open that hatch and we go out is we hook up that safety tether, and it's an 85-foot reel that as you're moving around, it goes out with you to, again, protect for that crazy moment when maybe an emergency happens and you come off station.
How hard was it to manage all of those tethers? I feel like every time I watched, it was like, there's no way in heck that this thing isn't getting snagged on something.
No, you're absolutely right, because everything, and you talked earlier about making sure there was no loose items in the cockpit, right? Because when you open that hatch, things are going to want to float away if they're not tied down or stored or anything like that. So when we go out on a spacewalk, not only do we keep us tethered to the spacecraft, but any tool, any part that we take out with us also has to be tethered. And it can be quite a challenge to manage all. You'll open up a bag and there's 10 pieces of hardware in there with 10 different tethers, and they get all tangled up, and it can really be pretty challenging.
It's important, though. We simplified that a little bit for this mission. We actually basically built in that tether into the umbilical, one of which you can see actually there floating under Jared's right arm. So not only does that provide airflow and comms and all the normal connections that we have in the umbilicals, but we also added that strength to provide that protection.
Yeah, and the managing of that tether is extremely important, because as they go out, if it can get tangled up, and you actually see Sarah there kind of moving around, right? It's very easy in this environment where you're floating.
SpaceX Dragon EVA off review complete. Crew are in position for EVA start.
Nice.
Excellent news.
Copies, crew in position.
But you saw Sarah kind of move the tether out of the way, and the part of that is that's actually impacting
Dragon
Jared.
SpaceX, you are go to command box triggered push to talk, all seats.
Copy, Inward.
And so this will be one of the unique things about the spacewalk today. It'll feel familiar if you watch some of Mike's spacewalks. The crew is going to go over to what's called Vox.
Push to talk is set. Go for comm check.
EV1, comm check.
EV2, comm check.
Support 1, comm check.
Support 2, comm check.
SpaceX copies all, good comms, all 4 crew. SpaceX copies all, good comms, all 4 crew.
So essentially now all of our crew are on open mics. They can all talk and hear each other, and they can talk to the ground. And so you're going to hear a lot more chatter start to pick up. Once we start the suit pressurization, you're going to hear almost like a sound. That's just the air starting to flow into their suits. How loud does it get inside your suit?
It actually is quite loud. That airflow is just constantly, which is a good thing, right? Because not only is it providing you the oxygen, but it's also helping get rid of that CO2 that you're breathing out. So you want that airflow to be constantly going, and so you always are hearing that fan that's making that happen. And so that is certainly pretty important. And the Vox thing, I got to say, it's nice that you don't have to push a button when you're outside there to talk.
Dragon SpaceX, we're about 90 seconds from EVA initiation.
Got some fist bumps going on.
Yeah.
And we just heard we're about 90 seconds from EVA initiation. So we should see them get the go to close their visors, and then they're going to open up one of the O2 valves on their suits to start the suit purge, and that's going to be the official start of our spacewalk today. So we'll get through the final goes, and then we'll see those visors get closed, oxygen start flowing, and we'll be off.
I love how everyone looks so calm and collected right now. I think that's a great visualization of just all the extensive training that they've gone through to get to this point. This has been years in the making. I'm sure they're excited, but everyone's focused.
It is an interesting time right now, right? Because one of the hardest parts I always found about
Dragon SpaceX. SpaceX is go for spacewalk operations. Report visors down, ready for secondary O2 flow initiation, and crew is go for spacewalk.
Verify your visors are closed. Secondary O2 valve is open. And that you are go for the EVA.
EV1 is go.
EV2 is go.
Support 1 is go.
Support 2 is go.
Dragon SpaceX initiating secondary O2.
And with that news, our EVA has begun.
So you're going to hear it referred to as primary and secondary O2. Primary is going to be that primary flow of oxygen to pressurize. Secondary is largely putting oxygen into their suits to help with cooling, but secondary is the first one we turn on. And so our O2 flow timer has started. EVAs start at 3:12 a.m. Pacific. I'll do the math on UTC in a little bit. So this first operation, or this first step in the operation, is a suit purge. So inside their suit, obviously when the visor is still open, it's still a nitrox environment. It's the same as the cabin. And since they're going to be at a lower pressure than what you can basically live at with oxygen levels, they're going to be on pure O2. They're going to be a 100% oxygen environment. And I mean, you guys were kind of in the same thing. And it's because like your suit, you can't move a suit around at 14.7 psi, can you?
No,
maybe you can, but like
no, that'd be pretty tough to do. And as we had talked about earlier, that's why that mobility is so important, because when that suit is pressurized like that, it can be challenging to move around.
Absolutely. So here on your screen, we can see the Polaris Dawn crew. Now with their visors down, the EVA has begun. We are beginning to flow that O2 through. Now, we will, of course, bring these views to you as we have them, but due to ground station coverage, they do come in and out here and there. But every moment that we can, we will certainly be sharing these with you. I also wanted to point out quickly that the window near kids' feet was so much brighter than it was just even 5 minutes ago. We're going to be seeing that in stark contrast as soon as we get the EVA, or with the hatch open and EV1 out there.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting you mentioned that, because as you're going around the Earth as fast as you are, right, in 30 minutes or 45 minutes or so, you can be passing in and out of that sun and going into shadow. And so that brings its challenges as well, because the temperature can change pretty drastically just in those transitions from night to daylight, and so it's an interesting moment when you're passing through that time.
That's actually one of the reasons that the visors have this new coating on them, different than when you wore a similar helmet. That coating actually helps to insulate the individual inside the suit, so when they're looking at the sun.
Dragon SpaceX. A reminder, after the initiation of primary O2 flow, EV1, EV2 will need to adjust VOX threshold low following primary O2 flow initiation.
EV1 copies.
EV2 copies.
Dragon SpaceX, secondary flow purge complete. Close secondary O2 valves and report ready for suit pressurization.
EV1 closed.
EV2 closed.
Support 1 closed.
Support 2 closed. SpaceX Dragon is ready for suit pressurization.
Initiating primary O2.
This is normal. This is with the airflow coming through. The crew members are on Vox, meaning that their microphone is on the whole time. So Sarah and Jared are going to be adjusting their audio levels as this flow continues to help regulate that.
Yeah, the Vox will kind of attenuate, so it'll sound like this now, but as we get through the spacewalk, it'll kind of come down, and you'll just hear voices a little bit more clearly. Their voices are actually going to change too. Like, did Does that happen to you? Did that throw you, Mike, the first time you heard that?
It absolutely did, yeah, because you're talking and you're going, who is that? Right? 'Cause you don't realize how much different it can sound.
Yeah.
Your voice can sound in that lower pressure environment.
Yeah. Speaking of lower pressure, we can see the pressure changing there with the telemetry in the bottom left-hand side of the screen. So we can see that suit pressure going up, and we're able to keep tabs there as well with the Dragon pressure. So Dragon on the far left circle, that's the pressure within the cabin, and then suit, obviously that's the pressure within the suits. So we'll actually be able to, and I think we've kind of been able to see it already, that these suits will inflate a little bit, look a little different. And we were talking about the visors before, so when they're in the sunlight, that coating will help keep them cool and not overheat them, and then when they're in shadow, it'll help keep them warm. So,
and it's also like your sunglasses as well.
Yeah.
Right? Serves that purpose.
All right, so at this moment, the suits are getting their primary pressurization. This takes about 3.5 minutes, a little bit less, and then we're going to go through those actual suit leak checks. The crew will probably get a reminder they have to stay really still when we do those leak checks, and I always was kind of wondering, like, why the heck? And like, if you bend your arms, you're actually going to start, changing the volume inside the suit. That'll cause pressure spikes, and so
that's right.
You got to stay really still.
Yep.
And then after we get through the leak checks, we're going to go through kind of that final pre-breathe where they're going to hang out in that 100% O2 environment just to continue purging all of that excess nitrogen.
Suit pressure stable when purge complete. Activate secondary flow on. Report when complete.
EV1 open. Port 1 open.
Port 2 open.
And right there, they finished the purge, and they did a quick reinitiation of that secondary flow check.
Response, close secondary flow, and report when complete.
EV1 closed.
Port 2 closed. Port 1, are you closed?
Port 1, SpaceX, can you confirm secondary flow closed?
These handles that we see Jared holding on to, these were one of the additions or customizations for this mission that we talked about earlier.
Support 1, SpaceX contact.
We got you.
All right, copy. Got support 1. Dragon SpaceX beginning suit leak check evaluation. Remain still for leak checks.
So once again, that background noise is expected. That is the microphones and the flow of air within the suits. So we're trying to stay quiet to, along with you, listen in on what the crew comms are as they go through. We're also going to get views in and out, as we mentioned before, due to ground station coverage.
Continuing suited preview.
is a little bit tough to hear. We just heard, though, that we got 4 good leak checks on their suits, and now they're going to be in this final suited pre-breathe. And so again, this is going to last about 19 or so minutes, and this is just to do kind of that final, get all of the excess nitrogen out. And we started pre-breathe just two hours after they got on orbit, just by gradually lowering the pressure. And I mean, pre-breathe, that's something that kind of evolved over time with the space station. Where were you when you were doing your spacewalks?
Yeah, so we were past the kind of the camp out phase of pre-breathe. But that's how we used to do it. And it's very similar to what the Polaris Dawn crew has been doing over the last couple of days. We'd actually have astronauts stay inside the crew lock overnight at a lower pressure, just like they did when they first got on orbit. Now we've moved on to, we do it the day of. It still is a long day. We start about 6 hours prior to going out the door, but it's not 2 days prior.
It's worth noting along the lines of training and how the crew prepared for this mission that all 4 of our Polaris Dawn crew members and some additional Polaris and SpaceX crew members actually went into a vacuum chamber and tested these suits out and spent a bit of time at lower pressure just to help learn what that feels like and get used to it.
Well, and I think the other thing that's important about that is it's real, right? It's the first time that you're in that suit and it's actually a vacuum around you, right? And there's just something mentally that I think is important to put people through those moments before you actually have to experience the first time in space.
Yep.
We saw some of the unique ways we trained the crew for this. And I mean, training for space station spacewalks, I'm still really upset I never got in the pool. That looks like one of the coolest parts of being an astronaut is not being in space, but just doing some of this training.
Yeah, Dan, I tell you, I can still remember the first time I stuck my head underwater, not in the suit, but for diving. But you can hear the comms of everything that's going on through the water like that, and it just gives me goosebumps to think about that. It was a really neat environment, but it looks like these guys had a pretty neat way to train as well with the harness that would hoist them up and out and all of that. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, we definitely created some rigorous new training for the best we could simulate an EVA while still on Earth with hoists and it was a lot of fun to watch them train.
Yeah. Back on board with cameras in 3 minutes.
So our core just called up. We'll get views back on board in about 3 minutes. As Kate talked about earlier, we're using ground stations for our video coverage. All of our communication with the astronauts are through TDRS, so tracking and data relay satellites. So we'll have constant audio, but that video, we need those ground stations. But right now they're in that pre-breathe. That final pre-breathe still. We started our spacewalk about 13 minutes ago. We initiated O2 flow to the suits. That time was 3:12 a.m. Pacific, 10:12 UTC. I did some quick math. Took me 13 minutes to do it, but I did it. So once they're through this pre-breathe, we're going to start getting into some really exciting parts of the spacewalk. And then after we get through the pre-breathe, we're going to get to cabin vents. So, what's going through your head when you're like, man,
it's happening.
The air's going out.
It's really happening.
It's happening.
Yeah, I tell you, it is a long process to get to this point, right? They've been prepping for this for 2 days, right? And one of the hardest things I found about the spacewalks is the waiting.
Hurry up and wait.
Hurry up and wait, right? You are so ready to go out and to do this mission and to go out that hatch, and it just takes time. And I think that's one of the things you talked about, my fifth versus my first. Your fifth, you kind of understand how long it's going to take. You have a better appreciation for how long it's going to take. And so you literally find yourself in these moments when you're kind of waiting through this pre-breathe or you're waiting for the airlock to depressurize, you just kind of find yourself just floating there, kind of zoning out, trying to keep yourself calm and relaxed, and until that moment when it's game time.
Yeah. Now, just a quick mention, we're about a minute out until we get those views back inside the cabin. The view that we had previously was our Dragon tracker, which if you want to see where Dragon is, you can actually look that up as well. We have it on our website, spacex.com/follow-dragon. But yeah, just as a reminder, our crew, they are in their designated, or well, Jared's not, but our crew members, basically Sarah and Kid, have switched their seats for the EVA. Last time we were able to see inside the cabin, we saw Jared awaiting to open the hatch. So he wasn't in his commander's seat, but Sarah is now sitting in Scott's pilot seat, also known as seat 3. And then Anna is on the far left side, and Scott is on the, oh yeah, we can see it there, on the far right side. And also just a reminder, their call signs for these EVA operations, Anna being support 2, Kid being support 1, and then Sarah being EV2 and Jared EV1, representing that Jared will exit first, do his activities, which include just some mobility testing of the suit, and then Sarah will go out and perform the exact same testing once Jared comes in. Meanwhile, Kid and Anna will function as the eyes and ears. They will be performing their own list of operations during or their own list of tasks during the EVA. So while Sarah and Jared are going to be the ones that are, partially egressing the capsule once that forward door is open, Kid and Anna will also be performing an EVA in their own right.
That's right. And we talked about it earlier, first time for people exposed to the vacuum of space. There's a lot of firsts in this. That's going to be a really cool first, not just for us and Dragon. But we are going to be getting views back really soon. We're, again, just in that final pre-breathe step right now. And then we're going to start venting Dragon down to near vacuum. So we're going to have a couple of different valves that are going to open up, and the atmosphere inside Dragon is going to start going overboard out into the vacuum of space. Now, the crew, the ground, they can pause that cabin venting if they need to. We can pause and resume. The most likely reason is for ear equalization, is again, you're going through a lot of pressure changes anytime you do a spacewalk. And so if you've ever flown on an airplane and your ears popped, you've experienced just a little bit of what they might be going through right now. Once we start cabin venting, if we terminate or abort the spacewalk during that venting, we cannot start again. We talked a little bit earlier about how consumables are the thing that really drives you. And for us, we don't have great big airlock with this, with a full station's worth of oxygen and stuff like that. So
Suited pre-breathe complete. Confirm crew for venting at pre-breathe complete.
EV1's go.
One more go. Parking down.
Copy, initiating cabin venting.
There we go.
That is great news.
Exciting.
So that breathing of increase, that pre-breathe where they were breathing increased oxygen, we just heard that they're good. They all 4 crew members gave the go. So now we're gonna vent the cabin.
yeah, in total, this will take about 8 minutes, and you can, the graphics you see on your screen, that's live telemetry, everybody. So you can see the pressure inside Dragon starting to tick down. You're going to see the suit pressure tick down as well, is what we're really trying to maintain as a pressure differential. And so with these suits, we're going to be hovering right around 5 or so. You might see about 4.9 to 5.1, 5.2. It'll be about 4.9, and then we'll probably see it go up a little bit when they reinitiate the secondary flow for cooling.
Copy 7.
Yeah, Dan, and you talked about that, about 5 PSI is what the suit will be. We're actually a little bit lower in the EMU.
Yeah.
And so we've talked a lot about mobility. That difference between we're at 4.2 and they're going to be at 5, it can actually make quite a bit of difference just in how hard it can be to move the suit around, et cetera.
Yeah, this crew got to, and that's something we can simulate, you know, in a vacuum chamber or even just in 14.7. You can simulate that differential pressure. Getting calls from the crew. They're monitoring along.
EV1's good.
We're gonna hear that chorus pretty frequently, where you do those kind of frequent, almost like check-ins. And I know you guys did something kind of similar, where like you would have to pause and, you know, check your gloves, that kind of stuff.
We did. I will tell you, one of the interesting things watching this live right now, the difference is how quickly the depressurization is happening here versus what my experience was. And so you talked about being able to clear your ears and all that. You're not giving a lot of time for your ears to adapt to that lower pressure. So this seems pretty quick to me.
Yeah, breaking new ground with this, new suits, new operations for everything. We're at about 4.5. We're going to see that tick down. It's going to get down to just under 1, and it's not going to go all the way down. And then what we'll actually see is we've got a capability to open the hatch automatically. We've got a motor in it, but Jared's actually going to unlatch it, and he's going to give it a little tug to kind of break the seal, any of the kind of the stiction in the hatch itself, and that's going to kind of take the capsule down to its final vent before Sarah, who's at the displays, she's going to command the hatch to actually open.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you know, there will be slightly more pressure inside the capsule, so really just helping.
4 PSI, seat pressures look good.
SpaceX copies 4.
So Jared really can't open the hatch all in one fluid motion, so we will see him release that pressure slightly before being able to open it completely.
And I think one of the important things, you guys, I think I talked earlier about you put some more restraint devices inside the capsule from when I flew on it, and that's extremely important because there's going to be some force that Jared's going to have to be pulling down on, and he needs to be able to anchor his feet somehow. Otherwise, he's going to pull and it's not going to go anywhere. And so the new restraint devices in there, we're going to see how important that's going to become here when he tries to open that hatch.
Yeah,
that's one of the things. That's why we have Skywalker out there. We've talked about how kind of similar to Gemini when they were first kind of stressing their legs, but important to remember, we've got that 50 or 60 years of spaceflight history that we're able to draw on. These are new suits. This is a new operation. This is to, you know, work out all the kinks and really test this for the first time. But we're going into this with a whole lot more information than they had back then. We know you need handrails or it's going to get real hard real quick.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
We did also hear Dragon's moving into its EVA orientation. Essentially, we're going to point the trunk at the sun under 3 PSI.
I think it's also interesting you notice that the depressurization has slowed down a little bit, right? So as we get to this lower pressure, it's just taking it longer for that remaining little bit of air to go out through the vents.
And EV1 com check.
EV1 loud and clear.
Loud and clear as well.
And also hear the Vox starting to adjust its levels.
Yeah.
That flow of oxygen has not stopped, but the microphone's kind of adjusted and it's getting a little bit clearer. And yeah, keep an ear out. You might hear their voices start to like tenor down a little bit.
I do think that's an important point, Dan, that how important comm is, right? And when it's compromised a little bit just by that extra airflow and the Vox not keeping up with it right away, how challenging it was just to hear those calls, and they can be some pretty important calls.
Of course.
comm is just critical.
We can see Dragon capsule now approaching close to 2 psia. Like Dan mentioned earlier, that's going to get to just under 1. It's incredible to think that, the Dragon capsule in all of its power and glory and awesomeness, the new capsule is around their bodies, right?
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
what is going to protect them from the vacuum of space. And, just seeing how, even though it's puffed up and we know that it's, holding that pressure, it still looks so cool, for
Yeah.
lack of a better word.
EV1's good.
EV2's good.
Oh, we're good. Supply 2 dead.
Yeah, you really have 4 mini spaceships in there.
Pressure approaching 2 psi.
I guess that means we have 4 aliens in there too.
Yeah, that's right.
Dragon SpaceX, less than 1 psi from hatch operating pressure. We have a TDRS handover in 2 minutes. We are going to wait until after the TDRS handover to command into hatch open prep.
EV1 copy.
And I think you heard that, the TDRS handover. So there's going to be a short period of time there where they're out of comm, and it's kind of interesting because we're at a very critical phase as well. And so you want to make sure you have all the data and the ability to talk to the astronauts before you actually take that next critical step.
We'll see it. We're seeing that pressure continue to tick down. Dragon originally designed to be able to still operate in a vacuum. That was some of the emergency situations I know you trained for, Mike. We did make some modifications to this one to essentially turn Dragon into a functional airlock. We added some additional vent paths. We do use like some of the same ones that you guys use to like pressurize the vestibule and stuff like that. That are actually in the hatch, but we've got an extra one in there to be able to essentially do that depress as quickly as we did. But we're gonna see that get down to a little under 1, and then we're gonna see Jared kind of jump into action. He's gonna unlatch the hatch, and then he's gonna give it a little pull to break the initial stiction, and then we're gonna be able to see Sarah.
1.5 psia. All suits look good.
EV1 copy.
Now, it's one thing to note that while we have been progressing through this pretty quickly, we did have the capability to pause if any of the 4 crew members needed to, take a moment to, let their ears come to equilibrium or just kind of get comfortable again. We did have that option, but everything has been going really well so far. We haven't had to pause cabin venting.
And if you're just tuning in, heck of a time to do it. We're about
good timing.
A little under 28 minutes into the spacewalk today, which again, that started when we started flowing O2 to the suits of these crew members. That was at 3:12 Pacific, 10:12 UTC. We just heard that Dragon's now in its EVA attitude.
Handover complete.
So again, we've got Dragon's trunk pointing towards the
we are
sun.
with you on board, watching through the cross view.
That was SpaceX core Arthur Berrialt, just letting the crew know that where the cameras are on inside and basically which camera is looking at them.
It's so fun to hear Arthur's voice because he was actually a part of our mission as well. In fact, Arthur was an intern. Started out as an intern when we were first starting the training, and so now to see him as a core and is pretty neat.
Very similar to Sarah, who also started as an intern.
Yes, yeah.
Right, we're coming up on 1 psi. You saw the light change a little bit through that window as we're in our EVA position, trunk facing the sun. That's going to help us with thermal inside the capsule and on the crew suits. Also going to make sure we're maintaining that that optimal pointing for communications with the Tidris satellites. Once the hatch is open, we're going to disable any of the Draco thrusters that point forward, because you don't want thrusters firing off when a crew member's outside. We're at 1. You can see the suit pressure is ticked down too. There's about 4.7 difference between the suit and the ambient cabin there in Dragon.
That umbilical that you see there, just to the side of Jared, that will continue to flow the air into his suit as well as provide telemetry and communications connection. That's also where we have the safety harness built in as well, so it's able to...
Dragon SpaceX, cabin pressure below hatch operating limit. Stand by for transition to hatch open prep.
Here we go. Mike, did you get to open the hatch?
I did. You did? Yes. Yeah. When you go out as
EVA hatch open front.
Dragon SpaceX, we're in EVA hatch open prep. Confirm crew ready to open hatch.
That is great news.
Hatch opening. EV1's good.
EV2's good.
EV1 good.
Flight 2 good.
SpaceX, EV1, we're ready to open the hatch.
SpaceX copies. Dragon, you are go to open hatch.
Go. Exciting.
Copy that, SpaceX, go to open the hatch.
Mike, as you mentioned before, that continuous communication.
The hatch handle.
As you can hear, we do have a crowd gathering outside of Mission Control here in Hawthorne. In their excitement, somebody dropped a cup. We can see our commander, Jared Isaacman, now turning the crank, which allows the that top hatch to open. We'll see him give it a pretty heavy...
EV1, hatch is visually indicating open.
SpaceX copies. Stand by.
Should see him give that hatch a pretty strong jolt to release that stiction. Hatch is now unlatched.
Mike talked about, you see him getting his feet set.
That's right. Dan, you'd asked if I'd gotten open the hatch. So when you go out as EV1, just like Jared here as EV1, that's typically the role for you is to open that hatch. And
you guys have to draw straws, fight over who gets. It's exciting.
It is. It's very exciting. Yeah.
Now, for those of you that have just recently joined, as you can see, we have successfully depressurized the Dragon capsule down to 0 PSIA. You see that in the bottom left corner of your screen. Our 4 Polaris Dawn crew members have gone through the O2 flow, and we see Commander Jared Isaacman now standing by to open that top hatch. The nose cone is already open. It opened just shortly after the crew got into orbit. So,
Dragon SpaceX target pressure reached.
Copy that, SpaceX. I'm unseating the hatch now.
Jared now opening Dragon Resilience
The hatch is unseated.
into space.
So you saw some motion on the hatch. Again, he's just giving it kind of that initial tug. And then Sarah gets to push the button to swing that hatch open.
Much more movement there on the forward hatch. This must be pretty exciting for Jared because that center part of
Dragon SpaceX, that's a good brace. We're going to have you repeat the operation.
Center of the hatch actually has a window.
SpaceX, the hatch is unseated.
Copy.
Let's give it another pull. The hatch is several inches inflated from the blue light.
Copy. We see it.
Looking out that tiny window there in the forward hatch, knowing he is going to have a much bigger window in just minutes.
Dragon SpaceX vent complete. EV1 return to seat.
And EV1 copies, transitioning back under the display.
So again, one of the reasons we had Jared do that was to...
Dragon SpaceX, we're actually watching that hatch. We're going to have you repeat the last operation.
Sounds like they're going to have him repeat them. One of the reasons we're doing that is just to kind of vent any of that residual atmosphere.
Up from under the display.
And EV1, you are go for manual hatch open.
Sounds like we got our first audible of the day. As we said, that we can open the hatch.
Opening the hatch manually.
We could open the hatch. We could open the hatch automatically, or we can do it manually. And so they just gave Jared the go to open that hatch manually. So we just went out of ground station reach, so we'll get the views back.
Wow.
We'll get the views back real shortly, and then the hatch will get
we'll
open.
See a hatch open.
And hopefully we see it. Yeah, hopefully we see a hatch open.
The hatch is open.
SpaceX copies. Hatch open.
That is fantastic news for those that...
SpaceX EV1, I'm looking at the seals. Initial view looks pretty good. I don't see any bulges or indentations.
Copy on hatch seal report.
Yeah, that seal that you just heard him talking about, it's such a important part for the end of the EVA, right? So that when they close that hatch again, you get a good... Get a good seal of the hatch.
EV2 SpaceX, can you command open forward hatch? This is going to stall it open.
There is our first view of the forward hatch, wide open to space.
Forward hatch. Execute.
If you just jumped in, we are 38 minutes into today's spacewalk, and the hatch is open on Dragon. First view from a helmet cam, looking out.
Dragon SpaceX, we see it stalled. EV1 is go to continue.
That structure you see there is...
Check for egress. EV1 good. SpaceX EV1, I'm transitioning back from under the displays.
SpaceX copies, we're with you in your helmet cam.
Once again, this helmet cam, that structure we see is the spacewalker. This is Jared now egressing through the forward hatch of Dragon Resilience. So the first views of the first ever commercial spacewalk.
I'm at the bottom of the mobility aid, progressing.
I have a feeling the crowd is about to go wild.
Good call.
Approaching the top of the mobility age. SpaceX. Back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, Earth sure looks like a perfect world. All right, SpaceX, DB1, I'm going to step into test matrix 1. Single-handed mobility demonstration.
Commander Jared Isaacman now emerging
Copy,
from...
we're with you in test matrix 1, watching from the nose cone.
Up, down, left, and right are 3s. Pitch and roll are 3. Yaw is a 2. Switching. Single-handed operations are fine. Static and with dynamic disturbance. Switching to left hand. Up, down, left, and right are 3s, maybe a 2. Pitch is a 4. Roll is a 2. Yaw is a 2.
So these are the suit mobility checks that Jared is performing.
Single-handed operations, dynamic and with disturbance are all adequate. Test matrix 1 complete. HUD check, 5.3 psi, 48% RH, 33.9 Celsius.
SpaceX copies test matrix 1 and HUD readout.
Crew ops check, EV1's good.
EV2's good.
Port 1 good.
Port 2 good.
Okay, stepping into vertical translation. We're going to start with the horizontal bars. All right, we're going to transition over to vertical. I'd say vertical and horizontal are equally workable, slightly favors horizontal. I'm going to do a max reach. Left hand's at the top of the mobility aid. At the midpoint. You have good video?
We just lost our live video, but stand by 1.
Okay, switching over to max reach, switching to. Copy that, SpaceX. I'm holding up at the max reach.
And EV1, go ahead and continue the operation. We'll let you know we're back on with live video.
Copy that. And for your awareness, max reach, left aid, and the mid bar. Next test matrix 2 is complete. HUD readout, 5.3 psi, 33.9 Celsius, 50% RH.
Copy, test matrix complete and HUD readout.
Crew ops check, EV1's good.
EV2's good.
We're good.
Port 2's good.
Stepping into test matrix 3, hands-free demonstration.
EV1 SpaceX for ingress time.
Go, SpaceX.
Recommended ingress time of O2 flow plus 7 minutes.
Copy that. Ingress time, 7 minutes.
And Dragon, we're back on live video from the nose cone.
Copy that, SpaceX. And SpaceX EV1, I would say the hands-free demonstration is very comparable to the trainer in terms of the foot restraints.
SpaceX copies. And EV1, when you have time, if you'd like to return to the reach demonstration, we'll take a look at that with the live video.
Copy that. Test matrix 3 is complete. The HUD readout is 5.3 psi, 47% RH, 33.8 Celsius, and stepping back into max reach.
Copy test matrix 3.
And as you can see, top of the mobility aid. And let's get a quick crew off check. EV1's good. EV2's good. I'm good. What2's good. Copy that. Okay, max reach, whether it's left or right hand, seems to be about the same. Top of the mobility aid, and then the mid-road.
Copy, we see it.
Checking up from the bottom. Any go back, SpaceX?
Negative. We got about 1 minute until EV1 ingress.
Copy that, 1 minute. It's gorgeous. Gorgeous, you guys, you get the ability to run the right foot.
EV1, we're checking out your helmet cam now.
Well, I'm checking out your nose cone right now. And looks pretty good.
Copy, we'll return to nose cone. See you looking at us.
All right, we're coming up about that O2 flow timer time. Crew check for ingress. EV1's good. EV2's good. What2's good. All right. SpaceX EV1. Congrats for the huge team effort that it took to get us to this point. We know it's just the start. Then I'm transitioning back into the vehicle. And SpaceX EV1, we've taken a quick look here at the hatch seals. From what I can see so far, they look pretty good.
Copy on the hatch seals and stand by for transition to 3-DOF reset.
Copy that, SpaceX. Good. And EV1 is clear.
All right, so Jared back inside. We heard him going through what's called the test matrix. It's basically just a bunch of maneuvers using different hands, using the foot mobility.
3-DOF reset is in progress.
Calling out numbers. Right now, though, we're doing, you just heard Arthur call up 3-DOF reset, so we didn't use any of the forward thrusters while Jared was out there. We're re-enabling them, putting us back in our perfect attitude before Sarah gets ready to go out the door. Fun thing to note it's still not a perfect vacuum inside a Dragon. It's an open loop system, so oxygen is kind of getting dumped into the cabin as this is going on. So you got a higher pressure in Dragon than you have outside. So we're not worried about thruster pluming.
Yeah. Now you mentioned Sarah, just like Jared, she will have 10 to 15 minutes outside, perform those same sets of mobility tests as Jared. Like we heard the Corps do with EV1, they will call out when there's 1 minute remaining.
SpaceX, attitude reset complete. EV2, go for egress.
There's Sarah's clear to proceed.
Copy. Crew check for EV2 egress.
EV1's good.
EV2's good.
All good.
Port 2 good. EV2 is going to go stand in the door and then step outside.
Now this test matrix that Jared just performed and the one that Sarah's about to perform, they have both committed to memory in order to execute these. We saw it being done pretty efficiently. I can't believe how quickly that time went by. Mike, we were talking about how your spacewalks were hours and these guys only have 10 to 15 minutes and it just like that.
Yeah, it can go pretty quick, and but fortunately,
Test fields look good. I see a little bit of a bulge between 14 and 13.
so you're hearing Sarah call out some more of the seal check there as she's exiting out.
It's reseated.
SpaceX copies that report. Good fix.
So this was something we knew might happen. And
It's
Sarah,
between 28 and 27.
Copy.
the crew trained on exactly what to do in this scenario. Just pop it back in.
And
Reseat
one
it.
final between 19 and 18. That might be best reseated with hatch closure.
SpaceX copies. Can you repeat the location?
After EVA complete. Between 19 and 18.
All right, copy. I'll track that and ask again when you're ingress.
Copy. EV2 is proceeding with egress.
Super exciting to see this. Our fellow SpaceXer, Sarah Gillis, now about to make her spacewalk.
EV1, I'm going to hand this back to you.
Like we mentioned, Sarah will be performing the same set of mobility tests. So we will do the same. Try to stand by and listen to those comms.
I mean, I said it before, a lot of us work here because we want to do this.
All right, stepping into test matrix 1 for single-handed mobility.
Really cool to see one of our own out there. That's awesome.
And EV2 for awareness, we're watching from the nose cone.
And copy all. I would say in all three translational axes, I'm having certainly cross-coupled movements. Forward, back, I am inducing a bit of a roll. Similarly with left, right. And up, down, a bit of a pitch, but all are achievable Rating is 3. Yaw is a 3. Roll is a 4. And pitch is a 3. Source for left hand. Stepping into vertical translation.
SpaceX copies. And EV2 for awareness. We're tracking an ingress time at O2 flow, 5-9 minutes.
Copy, 5-9 minutes. Horizontal bars are definitely preferred. And I'm adequately able to stabilize my body with single-hand disturbances. Steer for both left and right. Stepping into max reach, do you have visual?
Affirm, we have visual on the nose cone.
Copy from bar 4 to bar 2, from top down. And similar reach from bar 2 up to bar 4.
SpaceX copies reach.
And EVA test matrix 1 complete. Seat pressure 5.25, 33.8 Celsius, 37% humidity.
SpaceX copies HUD readout and test matrix 1 complete.
Copy, stepping into test matrix 2.
Like we mentioned before, views going in and out due to those ground station coverage gaps.
Yeah, we comms are
Some of the same.
Comms are through satellites, but we've got ground stations for video on Dragon. As you can see in the tracker, we just flew over New Zealand. We're about to go right over the middle of the Pacific. No ground stations in the middle of the Pacific.
Forward are actually pretty good.
We're hearing the voice of mission specialist Sarah Gillis, our fellow SpaceXer on her spacewalk.
She's got about a minute left, and then she's going to start heading inside.
And SpaceX with a little more work, they can actually get between almost bar 1 and bar 4 on max reach.
SpaceX copies.
And you could see the Earth dark, and we flew into like an orbital.
All right, and test matrix 2, trying to combine them, so we'll call that complete. Seat pressure 5.27, 38% humidity, 33.7 Celsius.
SpaceX copies matrix complete and HUD readout.
Stepping into hands-free demo. I'm able to engage and disengage my feet.
Copy that, EV2. And once you are able to engage, disengage, we'll actually have you start ingress. We're just over 5-9 minutes O2 flow.
Copy. With that, EV2 is proceeding with ingress. Pre-check for ingress.
EV1's good.
EV2's good.
Good.
14 good. Copy. Coming on in.
All right, and just like that, Sarah's going to start making her way in.
Are clear.
Check those hatch seals again.
SpaceX copies on striker plates. And EV2, I have one more ask for the hatch, if you can check that out as well when ready to copy.
Ready? Ready, copy.
Copy. And EV2, what I'll have you do is, when you ingress, can you get eyes on the hatch handle mechanism and see if the handle has been stowed in the do not stow window, and report if you can see that?
Check it. I think it's just outside.
Copy, just outside. Thank you.
Just outside the range. And for awareness, I do see a couple of those same points bulging again between 12 and 13.
Copy, your go to address.
No, mostly between 12 and 13 right now.
SpaceX copies at 12. If you can, your go to address those.
Copy and work.
These numbers being called out represent the location around. Yeah, the location around the circular hatch, just identifying where these bulges are. So Sarah's now reseating that seal.
Not quite able to reach the back one, so we'll proceed with clearing for hatch closure.
Just like that, we're already hearing about hatch closure. It's incredible that these two EVAs, just in 2 blinks of the eyes, are...
EV2 is clear of hatch, please.
2 checks.
On your screen there is SpaceX Core, or Crew Operations and Resource Engineer. On duty tonight is Arthur Berrialt. This is the voice to the crew throughout their operations. Of course, you know, everyone has to sleep, so we have different shifts for Core. But Mike, your time in Dragon.
Driving close. You're good?
Copy. Deploying handle. Applying force. And closing.
Once we get ground station coverage, again, we will be sure to bring you views within the Dragon capsule. But right now, Sarah is closing the forward hatch.
It sounds like we might give the motor a try.
He's confirmed the hatch is visually indicating closed.
And hatch is verified latched.
Okay, command and EVA hatch closed. EVA hatch closed. All Dracos enabled.
Dragon SpaceX, we see EVA hatch closed and pressure indicates good hatch seal. Stand by for transition to EVA repress 1.
And EV1 copies. Everyone check secondary O2 valves closed.
Copy.
I'm going to support one. I'm good. EV1's closed.
EV2 closed.
41 closed.
42 closed.
So a couple of real big moments right there. Sarah was able to make sure.
SpaceX, we
We're in
copy.
EVA repress 1.
We copy secondary flow is closed and agree. EVA repress 1.
She was able to make sure that the seals were in good spot. We got the hatch closed. You
Okay,
can
crew,
see
we're out of a half PSI for 8.3.
the pressure starting to tick up.
Just a final confirmation. Everyone confirm secondary O2 valves are closed. EV1's closed.
EV2 closed.
41 closed.
42 closed.
Copy that. And we're through 1 for 8.3.
All right, so each of the crew just closed those secondary O2 valves on their umbilicals. Again, that was primarily for cooling. During the spacewalk itself, the suit's still pressurized by that primary. And now we're going to start to see the pressure tick up inside of Dragon. Right after they get the hatch closed, they're able to do kind of an initial pressure check. Because again, oxygen, it's an open loop system with these suits still flowing into the cabin. You're able to see positive pressure response showing that the cabin, the hatch was closed and was sealed. We'll still do a leak check on our way kind of back up to our nominal cabin pressure. So we're going to continue ticking up until we're about 8.3 psi, and then we're going to transition into the second phase of our repress. Really the difference between repress 1 repress 2 is how frequently we're injecting atmosphere, as kind of the repress is also pretty unique with Dragon. We're repressurizing with just nitrogen right now, which is a little bit unique. Obviously you have nitrogen and oxygen in your atmosphere. With this, we have O2 flowing into the cabin through the suits, so we only need to add nitrogen. So we're able to just basically add a bunch of that to really start getting your pressure up. O2 continues to flow into the cabin through the suits, and we're going to continue pressurizing until we're pretty much right back at our 14.
Cabin fan 1 coming on, medium speed.
Right at about our 14 or so PSI. And we're also looking at what the partial pressure of oxygen is, because we want to make sure the crew takes helmets off and everything, that plenty of oxygen in the cabin. And then we're going to change that injection rate to just help with the mixing. Is microgravity, everything's harder, everything's on hard mode, and you don't just have natural convection. So like, I mean, space station, I think I've heard it a bunch of times, Mike, like you just constant noise of fans.
That's right.
Almost.
Yeah, there's you've got to continually recycle that air, and one, to help get rid of the CO2, right? Because as they're taking in that oxygen, they're breathing out the CO2, and we need to get that out of the system, which is another important reason to have that air constantly circulating.
Yeah. Man, that felt really quick.
It did.
That was really cool to see them outside for the first time. And what they were actually doing out there is a bunch of pretty simple tests as it looked, but like this is just learning how the heck do you move, because like just moving around in microgravity is tough, right?
It is tough.
Dragon SpaceX, we're about 2.5 minutes from Tedra's handover.
EV1 copy. Out of 3.
Yeah, that movement is tough, and there is a big difference just of moving around when you're in your short sleeves like we're in inside the capsule, and when you put on that spacesuit, it's much more challenging to move around with that on.
Yeah, and what they were really doing was just kind of like you put your hand on Skywalker, and then you're changing your pitch, you're doing translation up and down and everything. And then the one that I think is kind of cool is max reach, because like just going like that is, not easy.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things I thought was interesting is you heard, I think it was Sarah, talk about the horizontal rail versus the vertical and how much easier that was for her to grab onto or utilize versus the vertical one. So simple things like that, for us, it not a big deal.
Yeah.
But out there in the vacuum and in the microgravity environment, it does become a much bigger deal.
And you, Dan and I, we've never been in space, so we certainly appreciate all of your expertise that you'd be able to share with us throughout this morning's operations and contributing your 2 cents.
Yeah, no, thank you. It was great to be here. Just an incredible moment, not only for the Polaris Dawn, for all of SpaceX, and really for humanity, because it's just one of those small steps that's taken us that much closer to being that interplanetary species. So thank you very much for having me around.
Our pleasure. Awesome. You're welcome back anytime.
Excellent. All right.
Good to see you, Hopper.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right, so repress is continuing. We're a little over 4 PSI right now. Again, we're going to keep that going up until we're a little over 8, and then we're going to change our repress rate. We're basically just going to be injecting nitrogen for shorter periods of time. That's just going to help that atmosphere mix as we get the crew kind of back up to their normal cabin atmosphere that they haven't actually been at for the last couple of days, because we started this whole process like right after we got on orbit.
Yeah, it was almost like we launched them and gave them 2 seconds to acclimate and enjoy their cute 0G indicator, and immediately stepped into the pre-breathe in order to prepare for today's activity. And really, like you said, let them acclimate and let their bodies adjust. And, the success of that really was demonstrated today by the fact that we were able to step through all of the steps today without having to take the optional and available breaks to allow the crew members to adjust during... Oh, sorry, I thought we were going to get something there.
Yeah, we're
Vox
getting
coming in.
The TDRS in and out, so we'll get it back. But.
Just the fact that the all 4 crew members were able to just go right along and didn't have to pause as the option was available. I think it's a testament to the preparation that they did before and during.
You're on check. ED1 good.
ED2 good.
We're good. Part 2 good.
Just heard a quick check-in from them, so we're going to keep counting the PSI up until we get to about 8. We are going to do another leak check on the way up to our nominal cabin pressure. As you introduce atmosphere, you're introducing temperature changes, not just pressure changes. And so we'll get to a nice, pretty stable point when we're at 8, and then we'll let it hang out there for a couple of minutes. Let the thermals kind of cancel out. That'll take about 5 minutes to do that. This obviously has to be done to make sure we've got a really tight seal with that hatch, as before we let crew get out of their seats, move about the cabin, anything like that. Want to make sure Dragon is fully recovered. We just use Dragon as an airlock.
Yeah, and actually the info that you were talking about, you see it there on your screen live with that telemetry there in the bottom left and bottom right hand corners. We can see the Dragon capsule and the suit pressures continuing to rise. It is incredible that we've only been in the EVA for 1 hour and 13 minutes. It flew by so quickly.
6 on cabin pressure, approaching 1 PSI on PPO2.
I'm sure for Jared and Sarah, it flew by even quicker.
Yeah. We just heard Jared call down. We're coming up on 1 PSI for PPO2. So what we're really tracking before we give the crew the go to get out of their suits is both the actual, just the straight up, what the absolute pressure is inside, but also what the partial pressure of oxygen is. We want to make sure you don't have a hypoxic environment inside. Basically, you want to get them. They're going to be pretty much right back at the atmosphere that we're walking around in right now before they get their suits off. Our EVA clock's going to continue to count until we hear the call for EVA operations complete from our core Arthur Burial. That's going to come once we are done with the repress operation. We'll see a couple of other things happen with the suits. They'll do kind of a final washout of the pure O2 environment in the suit using nitrox before they get out.
Nitrox being that same air mixture that you have in your scuba tank. If you've got any scuba divers out there, that nitrogen-oxygen mixture. Nope, still just air.
They're just going to keep psyching you out. We should hopefully be getting video back from ground stations.
SpaceX, passing 7. Stand by for transition to repress 2 at 8.3.
Okay, copy that, SpaceX. We're following along. Repress 2 at 8.3.
Yeah, so once we transition to repress